What do you even know about toxic exes? Everyone might have their own story, write in the comments if you have one. But has anyone ever had acid thrown in their face? Today's story is about that. "18-year-old Tetiana Voronina said goodbye to her family and went to work. Just a few minutes later, there was a knock at the girl's apartment door. When Tetiana's mother opened the door, she was so terrified that she could barely hold back her scream. Her daughter was standing on the doorstep. The girl's face, neck, and chest were red and swollen, and Tetiana's skin was dissolving almost before their eyes. This terrible story begins in 2004. At that time, 16-year-old Tetiana Voronina, together with her mother Natalia Alexandrivna and her twin sister Anya, lived in the village of Danilivka in the Kiev region. In summer, Natalia often sent her daughters to visit their grandfather in Vasilkiv. One of these trips happened on Tetiana's birthday. Someone she knew came to the celebration with a 26-year-old man. His name was Vladyslav. This gentleman immediately started showing interest in the sisters and was especially interested in the birthday girl. However, the girl herself didn't like the suitor at all. For the next 2 months, Vlada and Tetiana didn't see each other after their first meeting. But then they started running into each other from time to time in mutual company. It just happened by chance. So, after a few such meetings, the guy was finally able to make a good impression on the girl. Unlike the first time, Tetiana's friends noticed that Vladyslav didn't abuse alcohol, didn't use illegal substances, and overall seemed like a decent, normal guy. In short, soon Tetiana agreed to, let's say, be friends with him. When the sisters returned home, Vladyslav started visiting them from time to time. Well, mostly to see one of the girls, of course. Everything seemed fine. The sisters even introduced him to their mother.
Vlad was always calm and polite. He often helped me and my daughters around the house. He even helped renovate the kitchen. And when the girls argued with each other over something silly, he would teach them. He said that any argument could be resolved peacefully. He taught them many good things, so I felt at ease about my daughter.
For the next year and a half after meeting the sisters, Vladyslav continued to show attention to Tetiana. Well, in the end it paid off. The couple started dating.
She was 18 and Vlad was 28. There was a 10-year age difference between us. We were dating. I guess when I was 18, I liked being loved, that he was always around me, helping me.
But that relationship didn't last long. After turning 18, Tanya got a job and started preparing to enter university. Now the girl wasn't interested in romance, and she didn't see her future with Vladyslav. It was kind of, well, just a fling. The girl wanted to get an education, build a career, and she wasn't planning to rush into marriage. At the same time, Vladyslav dreamed of having a family, insisted on getting married, and hinted at having children. The so-called male biological clock is ticking. Besides, the man started behaving a bit strangely. Tetiana's mother noticed this. Natalia Alexandrivna thought that the man was obsessed with her daughter. His behavior became obsessive. He started following Tanya almost everywhere. Her mother shared her concerns with her daughter. By that time, Tetiana had already realized herself that she wasn't interested in a serious relationship anytime soon. And her views on the future are very different from Vladislav's. That's why the girl, Tetiana, decided to honestly discuss everything with her partner and put an end to their relationship. When Tetiana said she wanted to break up, Vladyslav didn't really object. At that time, he had just been offered a job in the Odessa region. And after ending his relationship with Tanya, Vladyslav moved there. But the former lovers didn't want to cut off communication completely, both of them. So they continued to keep in touch by phone. Hi, how are you? What's up? And so on. One day, Tetiana called Vlad, but his partner Dmytro answered the phone. One thing led to another, and the young people started talking. Moreover, they felt, let's say, a mutual interest. They continued communicating, and after a while, Dmytro quit his job and went to Danilivka to try to build a relationship with Tetiana. When Vlad found out about this, he was overcome with rage. He also came to Danilivka to sort things out with his colleague and, attention, his ex-girlfriend. Despite the fact that Vlad taught the Voronina sisters to resolve conflicts peacefully, he himself preferred to use his fists. But on the day he arrived, he badly beat Dimitro. Of course, in Tetiana's eyes, this act didn't earn Vlad any points, so she decided to distance herself from him as much as possible. But he didn't understand that. Vlad started waiting for the girl near her house, and when he ran into her one day, he first suggested they have a beer together.
When I refused, he grabbed my hands and said, "Wait, don't go," and suggested we make love. "It will be nice for both you and me. After that, we'll go our separate ways, and I'll give you a phone and some money as well." I was shocked he would suggest that. We had only ever kissed on the cheek. I asked, "Vlad, have you completely lost your mind?" And he answered, "Yes." I didn't know what to say anymore. I don't love him, and money or a phone won't change that. I like Dimitro. All of that was already clear anyway. So in the end, I pushed Vlad away and went home.
About 2 weeks passed after that conversation. On July 5, 2006, Tetiana was getting ready for work. She still lived in Danilivka and commuted to work in Kiev, which took about an hour. That day, for some reason, the girl wanted to leave early. Once outside, Tetiana noticed that Vlad was sitting in her yard. It was 6 in the morning, and the guy was holding a beer. This immediately seemed a little strange to the girl. She wanted to go out, to avoid the persistent suitor. However, at the last moment, she thought that there was still time before work, and she could use it to explain to Vlad once again that she simply didn't need his attention. That's it, the end. Approaching the man, Tanya asked him not to bother her. Then Vlad, as if not hearing the girl, said that he just wanted to give her their photos together, that's all. With one hand, the man handed Tetiana the photos, and when she leaned over to take them, he poured the contents of a bottle on her. Beer he held in his hands. As you can understand, it wasn't beer. Tetiana's mother, realizing what had happened, immediately called an ambulance. As medics headed to their house, Natalia Alexandrivna took her daughter to the bathroom and washed her face. When the ambulance arrived, Tetiana was taken to the district hospital, but they had never encountered anything like this before. Therefore, it was decided to take the victim to the Kiev Regional Clinical Hospital. At the clinic, the mother and the girl were told that the daughter's face should have been rinsed with laundry soap. It contains alkali, which neutralizes acid. Since this wasn't done in time, the acid will continue to burn Tetiana's face for another 2 days. Since it's now impossible to wash it off and nothing can be done about it, we'll just have to accept it. And wait, the only thing that saved the woman from even greater injuries was that Vlad diluted the acid in water. The following weeks were spent in the hospital. For the first 7 days, Tanya could hardly eat. It was very difficult. Her lips were constantly cracking and bleeding. Her mother fed her yogurt through a straw. But even eating this way was very difficult for Tetiana. It took about 2 weeks for the wounds all over the girl's body, especially on her face, to dry out a little. After that, Tetiana was prepared for a skin graft. The area around her eyes was the first to be treated. To prevent Tetiana from opening her eyes while the wounds were healing, the doctors stitched her eyelids to her cheeks. Because of this, the girl was basically unable to see for an entire week. She had to move around by touch. According to Tetiana, she still remembers that it was exactly 42 steps from her ward to the bathroom. The girl's neck was also badly damaged by the acid. Her chin was actually fused to her shoulder, and for a long time Tetiana couldn't sit up straight. When she underwent another surgery, they had to take skin from her legs to graft onto her neck.
Her neck was injured. Back then I spent almost 2 years in that condition because it took a very long time to grow the skin back. It somehow got really badly fused onto my neck.
Meanwhile, the police began searching for Vlad. The law enforcement officers came to the hospital, took Tetiana's statement, and decided to install a listening device on her phone. They understood very well that this crime was committed under the influence of strong emotions. That's why they were convinced that the perpetrator would want to contact his victim himself. And they were right. Vlad systematically called Tetiana. The woman had to communicate with the man in order to help the police track him down. These conversations caused Tetiana unspeakable emotional pain, but despite this, the girl admits that deep down she was waiting for these calls. The woman claims that there was no question of forgiving such an act. However, her emotional state was so depressed that Tetiana even felt a little bit better when Vlad called her. In these conversations, the man insisted that now, as a woman, she would only be needed by him. This statement turned out to be especially painful because Dmitro, Tetiana's boyfriend, left her when he found out about the difficult rehabilitation that awaited her. At that time, when Tanya had a skin graft around her eyes and lost her sight for several days, Vlad called her to find out how she was feeling. The girl told him that she couldn't see anything. The next day, the man called again and said,
I walk through my apartment with my eyes closed, imagining how you navigate blindly. What can I do to make things easier for you? Where are you staying? I'll come over. I'm not afraid of the police.
Tetiana asked the criminal to turn himself in, saying it was the only thing that would bring her relief. But Vlad wasn't in a hurry to do that. Instead, he told her that he was a widower raising 2 children on his own, and then he started asking Tetiana to feel sorry for him and not to take their father away from the kids. That's how it was. Hearing such manipulative requests was very unpleasant, to say the least. The man begging Tanya for forgiveness didn't pity her when he poured acid on her. It's not just for a day or a month, it's for a lifetime, if she even survived at all. As Tetiana would later tell journalists, she believes that Vlad himself didn't realize it either at the moment of the crime or years after it. I couldn't fully understand what I had done and what physical and moral suffering I had caused my victim, whom I once supposedly loved. Tetiana was discharged after 6 weeks in the hospital. During her stay in the medical facility, the woman never saw herself in the mirror even once. When she got home, she was able to look at her reflection for the first time. And as you can imagine, this was yet another heavy blow. Against the backdrop of everything she had been through, the girl fell into a deep depression and began to have thoughts about ending her own life. Often in the middle of the night, Tetiana would wake up and feel like the acid attack was just a terrible nightmare. I felt the same when I found out about the cancer. It's gone now, but it was there. That resonates with me, since I used to wake up at night thinking, no, this can't be cancer or metastases, it must be about someone else. When you first wake up, it feels like it could be a dream, but no, sometimes it really is cancer. That's how at night Tetiana would touch the skin on her face and realize that this wasn't a nightmare but a terrible reality. One day, Natalia Alexandrivna came home and saw her daughter sitting in a dark room, surrounded by candles. The girl's old photographs were spread out around her. Her mother asked Tanya what she was doing, to which the girl replied that she was holding a funeral for the beauty she used to be. At that time, Tanya often retreated into herself for long periods. Her only comfort became evening walks with her dog. But even then, the girl couldn't forget what had happened to her. The passers-by wouldn't let her do that. When they saw Tetiana, they started whispering, discussing her appearance, and even pointing fingers at her. It took a very, very long time to get used to that. In order to learn how to keep living, Tetiana worked with a psychologist for a long time. Her biggest support came from her family, especially her mother, which was wonderful. Natalia Alexandrivna quit her job to focus on her daughter. According to Tanya, her mother's love and care helped her not to lose heart during the long rehabilitation after the attack. While the girl was gradually recovering, the search for Vladyslav continued. At first, the village police were searching for him, then the case was handed over to the district department. At first, the investigation was very active, but it did not bring any results. And over time, work on the case faded away. They put it on the back burner, as they say. Vlad was hiding, but he kept terrorizing Tetiana with his calls and text messages. A real scumbag. Thanks to this, it was possible to determine that the man was in the Dnipropetrovsk region. But it took law enforcement a whole 2 weeks to get there. I don't even know what to say about that. Time was lost. Vlad managed to escape. One day the man called Tetiana. However, It was the girl's mother who answered the phone. Vlad started assuring the woman that he loved her daughter. He even dared to ask for Tetiana's hand in marriage. The mother was, of course, shocked. She pleaded with the man to leave Tetiana alone and not bother her. They told him that it wasn't love on his part, and that such love simply doesn't exist. To this, Vlad said,
There are even stranger things. I read in the newspaper about a guy who poured acid on a girl, and then they got married.
But still, they managed to find the man's trail, and they did it by accident. Almost 8 months after the acid attack, the press reports that people who knew Tanya's story simply recognized Vlad from a photo printed in one of the local newspapers, and they reported it to the police at the time. At that moment, the criminal was living in Kiev and working in construction. Vlad was detained. After being detained, he said that he didn't want to cause serious harm to the girl, Tanya. He only planned to hurt her a little, to burn her. Also, Vlad said that the day before the crime, he put rags on his hands and poured acid on them, imagining that these were Tetiana's hands. He's crazy, yeah. According to him, he was supposedly trying to regulate the degree of burns and make them less severe. After such confessions and his arrest, Vlad was assigned a forensic medical examination. According to its findings, the man was found to be completely sane, healthy. 2 months later, the trials in this case began. Vlad arrived at one of the hearings with broken arms. He got this injury in the detention center after they found out about his crime there. The prosecutor demanded 12 years in prison for the criminal. While sitting in the detention center, Vlad sent a letter to Tetiana. In it, he wrote the following.
Hello, Tanya. I couldn't help but write. I understand that it's easier for you now that I'm locked up, but so many years behind bars, that's just too much. Come to the court. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk. Don't be afraid. I'll be in the cage there and I won't eat you. I really want to see you. I have a lot to tell you, if you want. You can reply in that style, like screw you. And if I get even one word of hatred from you, it will make me really happy.
In April 2007, the judge delivered his verdict in this case. The man was convicted but sentenced to just 10 years in prison. At the same time, this sentence included punishment not only for the crime against Tetiana, but also for a burglary that Vlad had committed earlier. The man was also ordered to pay the victim about 100,000 hryvnias. In fact, Tetiana received only 8,000 from Vlad, which was about $1,000 at that time. The reason Vlad received such a light sentence was a mitigating circumstance since, as I remind you, he was a single father. However, according to Tetiana, while Vlad was awaiting trial, he was deprived of his parental rights. But even so, the fact that he had children was taken into account, and the sentence turned out to be more lenient than expected. During his 5 years in prison, Vlad constantly tried to get in touch with Tetiana. Because of this, the woman had to constantly change her phone numbers. Then, for a while, he disappeared. After spending 8 years behind bars, Vlad was released. Thanks to good behavior, by that time, Tetiana had sold her apartment and moved. Fortunately, the man didn't know the woman's new address. However, one day they met in a store, by chance, and Vlad even suggested to Tetiana that they go out for coffee together sometime. Of course, she refused.
He initially mistook me for my twin sister Anya, but once he realized it was me, he invited me for coffee. Of course I stayed. His eyes were empty, completely lacking spark. I saw a miserable shell, an empty person. Then I felt relief. I finally closed an unfinished chapter. I was no longer afraid of or hated Vlad, nor did I despise him. He was a spiritual corpse to me. I just didn't care anymore. That's likely when I let go of my past.
They never saw each other again. In total, from 2006 to 2022, Tetiana had to undergo about 18 surgeries. In 2010, a mesh was implanted in her neck to hold the skin so that it wouldn't contract. However, in one area, the skin was stretched too tightly, and the post-operative wound just wouldn't heal. Despite many challenges during her recovery, the girl persevered and completed her studies. and she got a job. In 2016, she was invited to a television project on the 1+1 channel called Return My Beauty. There, the woman shared her story, and she had a few more surgeries. They removed a mesh from her body that hadn't taken and began to rot.
For 6 years after surgery, I had a purulent neck wound that wouldn't heal and constantly oozed serous fluid. The project doctors were shocked, saying I had unknowingly carried a ticking time bomb for years. At any moment, an infection could have gotten into the wound, and I could have died from sepsis.
Fortunately, Tetiana received qualified help in time. She is still grateful to the doctors and the television show for helping her. After all, at that time, Tetiana's family unfortunately didn't have the money to pay for such an operation on their own. Soon after the project, Tanya met her future husband, Andriy. The couple met on social media. After their first meeting, Andriy said he could only offer the girl his friendship. Tanya decided that she would make the offer to the man. She simply felt sorry for him and didn't want to build even a friendly relationship based on pity. She wrote the following to Andriy.
You're not a savior, you can't save everyone, so you don't need to be friends with me or talk to me just because you feel sorry for me.
But soon the woman agreed to another meeting. Within a month, they not only became a couple, but also started living together. Well, and after another 6 months, Andriy asked Tanya to be his wife. For 5 years, the couple struggled to conceive. It was a long, difficult process. But in 2022, during an ultrasound, Tanya found out that she was expecting twins. Sadly, this good news was overshadowed by the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. At the war's start, Tetiana and her family moved to the Khmelnytsky region. However, she later returned to Kyiv, where she gave birth to 2 boys. She named her younger son Rostislav in honor of Rostislav Valiknovsky, one of the surgeons who performed surgery on her as part of the Return My Beauty project.
When the boys are older, we'll visit my mother-in-law in Khmelnytsky region. It's safer there. Everything feels uncertain these days, and now I'm afraid to take the children out. They're so little and defenseless, they can't even speak yet. But I look at them and realize that I've never loved anyone the way I love them.
And you know what's interesting? When I worked purely as a videographer, I filmed one of his surgeries. It's even on my channel. This video isn't public, so I'll just leave a link to it in case you want to watch. There's nothing special there, but that's how it was. That's the story for today. It's creepy, it's terrible, but in the end it really touched me. Take care of yourselves. Right here, more than ever, I'll remind you to be careful about who you let into your life and who you keep there. And so on. That's all. Hugs to everyone, thank you. See you in the next video.